to Coast Creatives, a podcast for and about working professional artists within the entertainment industry. I'm Torrin Cavens Flores, and along with my co-host Joe Funk, we interview actors, directors, photographers, writers, and many, many more. In this episode, we'll be talking with Yaz Canli, writer, director, and star of My Home Unknown, an important film addressing homelessness and mental illness that demonstrates what we see in everyday life goes further than just skin deep. She tells us about her triumphs and tribulations during filming and what it was like writing, directing, and starring in her own passion project. Without further ado, let's talk to Yaz Canli.
All right, thank you so much for being here today, Yaz.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me and taking the time to talk to me.
Of course, it's our pleasure having you here. How are you doing? You're calling in from sunny California today. How is the weather?
That is correct. You know, it's actually been not very sunny because we're in June, which is a June gloom in LA.
Yeah.
But today we had a little bit of afternoon sun, which is very exciting. Especially my dog loves it because he's a professional sun tanner.
How many animals do you have?
Currently, I have one dog, but I also volunteer at the shelter because I love dogs. So I take care of dogs there. I'm a dog handler, so I train dogs and work with them. And growing up, I had lots and lots of different animals. I had like bunnies, guinea pigs, birds, dogs, a hamster.
a little bit of everything. And is your current dog Burrito? Is that the actor that played Burrito?
Popo?
Burrito is the star of the film, yes. And he is, he was my dog and my ex-boyfriend's dog, and he now resides with the ex-boyfriend.
Oh, okay. I got you. Well, you are here today to talk a little bit about your film, which is making its world premiere. Your film, My Home Unknown. Tell us a little bit about this film and what it means to you.
Sure. My Home Unknown is a film about a woman with schizophrenia who is experiencing homelessness, and it's really just a raw story about the battle on the street, life on the street with mental illness, and having the courage to accept help in order to find home, whatever that means, the meaning of home. Yeah, and we shot this film in the height of the pandemic, all over the streets of LA, amidst the homelessness crisis here in LA. So it was it came with a lot of challenges, which none of them stopped us from continuing and finishing the film, because we all believed that it was such a powerful message that the film holds and a very important story to tell in these times right now.
I honestly would not have guessed that it was in the middle of COVID, because there aren't a lot of signs in it. Now, looking back at it, I do see that a lot of these scenes were outdoors, which is kind of the nature of the character anyways, but there were not a lot of indicators in there that was COVID. I was assuming this was all post-COVID. What was it like having to structure production during COVID?
I mean, you just had to be extra creative. The story or the script actually was birthed because, or due kind of like to the circumstance of the pandemic. I wanted to direct another script of mine that was actually the first feature that I've ever written. And I have a producer that was very interested in it. And so we started to kind of have conversations about it. And then the pandemic hit. And in the beginning, we didn't really know how long is this going to last. So everyone was kind of like, on hold. I was doing a writing program at Sundance, and so I kept continuing my craft. And then at some point, it became clear we're going to be in this for a while. And so my frustration grew of like, well, I don't want to wait to talk to finance or to have like proper budgets and film sets open up again. So I had a conversation with a colleague of mine, a producer director, and he was just listening to my frustration. And he said to me, well, if you want to be a director, be a director. You just got to do it. And so I went home and I was like, oh, I got to do it. I got to figure it out. And so I was kind of like up all night and couldn't really sleep. And the next morning I woke up and I sat on my computer for, I think, 7 or 8 hours straight and started writing. And it was kind of like a combination of things that I had sort of ideas for before. I had some part. It's interesting when you watch the film. Here's a little candid behind the scenes secret, or not secret, but a little note is, so all the flashback scenes of Mina and her family, which at the end you find out how long ago that is. Spoiler alert, I'm not going to tell you. That footage I had actually already filmed. And back then I had a thought of putting this thing together, but it wasn't really complete. So it was just some part of footage that I had and I've been kind of sitting on. So I was like, oh, I have this amazing footage. And it's so beautiful. What could I do with that? Then I had prior another little idea that I kind of outlined before about this young woman that was living under a bridge with her dog. So these things came together. And so it was all of these things kind of like came together and became this script that was then in mind of, well, we are in the pandemic, so who of my actor friends are around that would be willing to go in front of the camera without a mask? What locations could I use that are safe or realistic or whatever, outdoors, of course, those type of things where we can shoot? How many locations can I change my house into?
Right.
Things like that. And so it really became writing kind of with all of that in mind. And it was a very different and cool experience to write that way. And then, of course, because it was the pandemic, there was challenges. People, like, the day before, I think day 1, 2 of the crew members couldn't come because they got a COVID test that was positive, and things like that, or an actor couldn't come and stuff like that. And so I always had to be on my toes and rewrite. Honestly, like almost every day I was rewriting stuff on the go, on the fly. We were sometimes walking around the streets, and also at that point the encampment in LA on the LA streets was just growing and growing, and so you would never know what to expect the day of when you arrive at the street, because it could be completely crowded, so we couldn't film there, or something was different, or there was constructions now, or the police was there. So we had to be just very, very flexible the whole time. And also I wanted to make sure, another challenge, I did not want the audience to know that we were in the COVID time, so we had to constantly make sure, because when you watch the film, you also see I use a lot of super wide shots, which I love the contrast of super close up and super wide shots. So we have a lot of super wide shots. So we always had to make sure that we shoot around no people with masks or anybody, anything that indicates we're in the height of the pandemic. So yeah, it just became extra creative for me, and I think also for our crew. And I had a conversation with our crew before that everybody had to be cool with kind of being on the fly like that, and just be spontaneous and flexible, and they were all super excited because, like I said, there was not really any work out there at that point. So they're like, oh yeah, we get to film, I'm in, cool, yeah. And it's like all adventurous, and we're gonna like just go from place to place. So it was a fun experience.
Well, it was a fun experience, and it was a successful experience because, like I said, I had no idea that it was during COVID. I did not see a single mask in there. So you did, you and your editors and everybody involved in the production did a wonderful job.
My question, though, while watching it, I was like, wow, some of these streets are pretty empty. Like, how much money did they blow on permits? And like, oh, okay, this all...
The gift and the money gift of COVID. They were,
like, oh, it makes sense now. Because
it was a balance too, because, like I said, we would show up sometimes to these locations, and then there was a lot of people there that were staying there overnight or had camped out there for a while. So it was kind of like both. And I mean, we shot really all over LA, and we also did shoot on Skid Row. very short sequences, but we did. And so when we got to those locations, I was the only one at that point that took the risk, so to speak, to go unmasked in front of the camera, because that was another big factor of me playing the lead character. It started kind of out of necessity, that less actors, less people on set, on crew, So, and that was something when we got to those areas where everybody obviously was masked, and that's when we worked around with like different lenses, so the crew could be further away. They were even on the other side of the street. So wow. I was the only one that was kind of walking through those areas just to protect the crew, due to COVID protocols and all of that stuff. So
that's smart. Yeah. And that's exactly what you had to do during those times. And that leads me to ask you a little bit about locations. The canvas, the backdrop for your film is the city of Los Angeles. And what specifically about that city was appealing to you for this story, and how did it help define the characters? What did the location bring to the story?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, first of all, of course, it's the immediate reflection of me as a writer-director's life and living in LA, and I was witnessing the homelessness crisis just grow and expand to dimensions that we haven't seen ever before. So it was that, the reflection of that. And then also I have worked for years and years as a fit model in the fashion industry. And so a lot of my clients are in the downtown area or the more industrial areas of downtown. So I'm very familiar with those areas. And so driving from client to client, I would see so many things. And so I was inspired by that too. And when I got together with my cinematographer, I was very specific of what I wanted the visuals to look like. And I said, basically, that my motto was like, I always want to find the beauty in the ugliness, because there's so much like raw and gritty and ugly, so to speak, like industrial or dirt or street or asphalt and all of that. But there's always some beauty to find in that. And so we were really going around with that in mind, with the eye of like, oh, where do we find those spots? And I mean, LA River is one of the main, or one of the big locations in the film. That's one of Mina's places where she stays and lives. And the LA River, I mean, it's disgusting. It stings. You don't want to ever like get closer to get near it. But it also had this like beautiful component of like, right. This is another thing. When we were filming, we went through, which is so not typical for LA. We went through like 4 seasons while we were filming. We had cold, windy, rainy weather. We had sunny, hot, like everything. So for some reason, during our time, which was in like March, April when we were filming, we had gotten some rain, so there was a lot of water in the LA River. Usually it's dry; it's not even nothing there. So that brought a lot of seagulls there. So when we were sitting there, I was like, this almost feels kind of like a retreat or like a resort. Like you're sitting at the ocean, the seagulls are like flying by, and they make that beautiful noise, and they're just bathing in the water, and you hear the water splashing. It became really beautiful at some point. It was wild, and then we even had like some ducks and geese that came, and like there's a quick shot in there too where Mina's just passed out on the pavement and she's like communicating with the geese, and that was just a shot where I was like, oh my gosh, there's geese, let's just film something really quick, and just like laid down on the ground, and I was like, doing stuff. So it was that finding that. And then I think for the characters, Mina was a little bit of a nomad, right? So she travels from place to place. She's also like, everyone has their unique story. She's not just like the standard, oh, she just lives on the street. She's in many different phases of experiencing homelessness. And so she has a spot there, but then that is really rough and isolated and away from people at LA River. But then she also goes and sleeps on the couch of a friend, but then it gets too intimate and too close, so she has to run again. And then she might stay at Mickey's character, who supplies with substances, but he's also somewhat of the closest thing to what you could you could see as a confidant or something like that, like a friend that she allows. And so then she sleeps in the garage with him. So all of these different, I wanted to give all of these characters, not just Mina, different and specific home, because it's such a big topic, just a big theme in the film, home, and home can look so many different ways. And we also have the character Raffi, who is the one in between. He's transitioning from the streets in Venice to like temporary housing, and he's in an integration program to get a job and a phone. And so all of these different homes are just to show that there's so many variations of it. And that's why we also shot in so many different areas of LA, because we shot in West Hollywood, like bordering Beverly Hills. We shot in East Hollywood, in Hollywood. We shot in Burbank, like you have the Hollywood sign in the far distance in one shot. A lot of it downtown, industrial areas south of downtown. We also shot the basketball stuff and those scenes with her two friends, Rami and Malik. We shot that in Compton, in the actual like part of Compton, in a park. So yeah, I just wanted to show that the versatile places of LA and homes and situations like that.
Yeah, and that's the benefit of shooting within a city like Los Angeles. I lived there for close to a decade, and if you're not from there, if you haven't spent some quality time there, you might not understand, but like Los Angeles is so massive, and there's so many different neighborhoods and areas, and as soon as you cross over into another one, it feels like you're in a different world. And it really aided your story, because when she was going to meet certain friends or family members or whoever throughout the city, the atmosphere would change according to those characters and the energy that they were bringing about. And that was such a lovely tool for you to utilize as a director. Visually, did you have a favorite location?
I mean, the LA River it was a very, very challenging location, but it also became just such a beautiful and stunning. I mean, when I say challenge, just to give you an idea, like we had to park the cars like about a 20-minute walk away. Then we had to like park right in front, drop gear off, somebody stay with the gear, then go park the cars, walk 20 minutes back. Then we had to climb over the fence, and we had to step down like a steep, like quite a bit down to get to the pavement. Then you're walking on a slant, because it's a slant that goes down to the LA River. So you got to be careful that you're not sliding, falling down, which I did during a photo shoot, and I twisted my shoulder.
Ooh,
so with all the gear and everything, then we had to set up the cardboard box and the set every single time, and then had to break it down. So it was challenging, and it is very dirty. It is very smelly. It is very loud. We're also on top under a bridge, so there's trains going, there's cars and trucks going, so sound was also absolute nightmare. It was very, very, very challenging, but it became such a important and also I think cinematic location for us that I think that's a special one. I've also never seen it in any film before. That's another thing with location. I wanted to have iconic, I wanted to have very strong and powerful locations of LA, but I wanted to stay away from the cliche, like iconic, Venice Beach. I mentioned Venice, but I don't shoot at Venice Beach, or like the Hollywood Boulevard, So I wanted to find more personal and more individual, like specific locations like that. And the LA River, I've never seen any film that shot at the LA River. I mean, because it's very challenging to film there. And I guess also like if it's not the pandemic, it's probably really, really hard to get permits and all of that stuff there.
Yeah. So, no, in your film, it is absolutely stunning scenery. And the fact that you ran into all the rain and the water and everything, it's great. At the beginning of the movie, that's how we open. And you hear the seagulls. And watching it for the first time, I was like, okay, she's dreaming of the beach or something like that. Nope, it's right outside of her box, seagulls in the LA River. And for anyone listening who hasn't been to LA, It's not a river. It's a concrete like basin that runs for miles, and that's
usually
it.
doesn't even have water. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
usually
Yeah.
it's just
No.
dry. It looks more like a really long half pipe.
Yeah, you did a great job of capturing the intimacy of, I would say, street level Los Angeles. Los Angeles is, one of those major metropolitan areas where you're always looking up. It's looking up at the skyscrapers. It's looking up at the Hollywood sign and all of the attractions, and you miss a lot of what's happening below. So you're showing a whole side in your film that not a lot of people are familiar with. And I commend you for that. It was wonderful. I loved it. Like I said, I lived in LA for almost a decade, and it was wonderful to see that.
And I think a lot of the reason why people don't show it is because they have something in their mind thinking that it's ugly. But it serves in your film so much. So, yes, commendations. Yeah.
And with this story, with My Home Unknown, you're telling what is a universal story. Within the credits, you say that 100 million people in the world are experiencing homelessness. I want to know, while you were writing this, while you were developing the screenplay, what were you hoping to have the impact be of this story?
Honestly, when I write, I don't really think about that stuff. When I write, I'm just so deeply invested in the characters and what the character needs to say. I'm so invested in what this character is going through, what the journey is, and then what the overall message will be after that. So after all of that, I am very interested in telling story with a humanitarian message. And I tackle that by really coming through character specificity, because then it becomes a universal thing again. So when I write, I always focus really deeply on the needs and the desires and the wants of characters, the fears, the things that they're terrified of, the things that they long for, because that's things that then become universal. Like, everybody understands the longing of belonging. Everybody understands the heartbreak of losing someone they love. Everybody understands the sadness of feeling alone. And all of those things, when those are in the character so specific and strong, it doesn't matter what the circumstances, what the location, what the age of a character is. It just becomes something that people can relate to. And then when you watch whatever it is, for in this movie, My Home Unknown, it is about homelessness and mental illness. Then it becomes secondary. It becomes more about, oh, I know what that feels like. Oh, I can relate to that. Oh, I've felt this before. I've been there, or whatever. And then it becomes of the humanitarian message, or the humanitarian device that I use then is really just to inspire compassion in the audience for whatever it is that it is. So in this case, it is homelessness and mental illness. But when people can relate, when people can feel someone's pain, can feel someone's sadness, can feel someone's longing, and they can relate to it, it inspires compassion. And when you have compassion, that is where everything begins. I think that's the first step to solving any part of humanitarian work, is we have to have a compassionate heart first, to then, oh, wow, I understand this, or now I can see this, or okay, how can I be part of the solution, or what can I do, or all of those things. It always starts with compassion.
Yeah, that's beautiful, and you're tapping into core human emotions with these characters. And one of the ones that I really enjoyed was this repeated theme of help, of people trying to offer help, and our main character essentially responding, you don't understand, and you can't understand. And even if we don't personally suffer from something like schizophrenia, we understand that these are core emotions and feelings that we all have, and we all have those moments where it's like, I don't feel like anybody is hearing me or understanding me on this issue. Who do I have to talk to? And that really hit home for me.
It's funny you say that, because me too. It was interesting how these people offered her help. It was sometimes misguided, but it was still genuine, misguided because of stuff going on in their own life, but it was still genuine. And it's just, it speaks to just how not black and white things are, It was still coming from a good place, but like I said, oftentimes misguided. I have a question. Is there any reason specifically for schizophrenia?
That I chose that for Mina's character?
Yes.
I have been fascinated and interested in mental illness for a very long time. My background is from acting, so I've been acting my whole life. And so when I was younger, I was playing multiple characters with different mental illnesses. So I've done a lot of research on bipolar and schizophrenia and depression and mental illnesses like that. So I always had a fascination for that, and also a lot of research and knowledge already about it. And so that was definitely one component. And then another component is that, again, it's an immediate reflection of my world as a writer-director. I see so many people around that are, they have visual or mostly audio like hallucinations, and they speak to those hallucinations or they run from it. And so it's kind of like what you see a lot around. And the numbers are really shocking. I don't want to specifically quote them because I feel like they fluctuate so frequently, but the last number that I researched of the percentage of people that are experiencing homelessness that also suffer from mental illness is shocking. I mean, it's way above 50%. It's way above that. And so it doesn't mean that everybody on the streets is suffering from mental illness. Absolutely not. But it is also very highly visible. And so those were kind of like the inspirations for it.
Yeah. And you're playing such a complex character here. I'm wondering, how were you able to manage directing the film on set when you were playing this character? You're bringing all these emotions out on screen. How are you able to, in between takes, put the director hat back on, work that job, and then jump back into the acting? How was that experience for you on this project?
And the writing hat, because you were writing it on the go as well, because everything changes in film.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it was really madness, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, it takes a certain type of person, I think, to be okay to do all of that. There has to be a level of madness there for sure. But I think the most important thing for me, it was just preparation on all aspects. So as an actor, I mean, that's kind of like what I've been doing my whole life. So that's what I've been working on the longest. So I feel very strong in my acting. Nonetheless, there's, you still have to be very, very focused and prepared in order to deliver every single time. And also in situations where it's like time, you don't have time, or there's a literally like police standing there. So they're like, you can have one more take and then we got to go, and stuff like that. So you have to obviously have a very, very sharp focus, but preparation. I mean, as the character, I have to know the character inside out. I have to live and breathe the character. There's no separation anymore. I also come from method acting, so I am a proud lifetime member of the Actors Studio. So the way I work is through method, so I can jump in and out very quick because I just use tools of sensory work where I can just switch back and forth really quick. But I also, the way that I work when it comes to the character, when I have to switch back into the directing, I always keep one of the sensories going underneath, so I never lose the character completely. I never fully give it up. So I always have something still cooking underneath, but I'm able to go into my other side of the brain and which is still the creative side, but go and look at the shot or go change something. Because also this was a film that, again, height of the pandemic, and we had no budget. It was completely self-funded. And so we had like a core skeleton group of 5 people. And so I'm wearing, I think, around 10 department hats, not only writing, directing, and acting. I'm costume, I'm prop master, I'm art department, I mean, everything. So there's so many things that I had to look out for and check. And that brings me to my second thing, which is you have to build the strongest team possible around you. So I had Diane Foster as my producer and Liana Montemeyer as my first AD, and those two, they knew the script inside out, and they knew everything that needed to be done. So they had the second and third eyes on it as well. And then my cinematographer, Philip Greenbaum, and me, we went over every single shot multiple times before we even started production. And I'm talking about like every detail of the shot, the lenses I wanted to use, the how close I wanted the camera. We will find it on the day where we place the camera, but how close, how intimate I wanted to be with this shot, or how wide I wanted to be with this shot, on which line I wanted to cut to something else. So it was just really a combination of crazy preparation and then having a strong team around you. And then you also, again, have to communicate that everybody knows, to have the patience, because when I'm acting and directing, it takes longer because I have to go and check monitor. Not for every single take I have to watch the whole take, but at least I can watch like the first few seconds, be like, okay, cool, because I can feel what my acting was, or if I have to go again. But like technical wise, is everything the way we need it? And you know, so it's pretty wild. But yeah, that's the way that I work. I've only done it once before, and yeah, it's kind of like those two components.
How was the task of directing yourself when you're looking at the monitor? Did you find yourself being overcritical at times? Was that something that you had to combat?
I think because I was wearing so many hats, and we also had pressure of time and locations. There's not a second. There's no time for the ego to even sneak in there. Literally, there's no time, which is great. But I not at all. When I'm looking at the camera, it's like I'm a different person. I just look at the frame, and I look at all the technical things. And the acting, I am so attuned with my instrument because I've been doing it my whole life that I know that I either got it, I got there, or I didn't. So I don't really look visually like, oh, how does the actor look on camera? It is all about the emotionality of like, was whatever the need, the desire, the drive that is in this scene, was that translated or not? Did I get to it or not?
I love the confidence, because I tell all my students that so much of this is confidence, and that doesn't by any means mean cockiness or anything like that. It's what you said, being in tune with your instrument. You have to be confident to have that. I really appreciate your confidence, and I think it is so important. I feel the same way.
Yeah, and I think it that can only come from practice.
100%.
It doesn't
100%.
come from, oh, I'm the best, and I'm so No, it's because I work on my instrument, and all the time, and I never stop working. Like I said, I'm a member of the actor studio. That's a huge thing. We go to the gym. We go there and we practice and we exercise and we use our instrument and we refine our instrument. You're never done. You always keep learning and growing more. And so this is just years and years of practicing. And that still doesn't mean that I get to points where I was like, oh man, I can't figure out how to get there. I just don't know how to do this. Like, you just have to experiment and find it. But if the more you know your instrument, the more you know how to work with your instrument, the more confident you can feel that you can rely on your instrument. And it's not like oh, like, I hope, the emotional gods are going to come to me in this take and it will happen. No, it's like I make it happen because I create it with my instrument. That, and then also it's surrendering to it. Like I said, there's no ego about how do I look. That's what I was saying. So when I go back as the director and I check, I never even have one thought of like, oh, how do I look? Do I look good as Mina? Does her face look good there? Or I don't look for that. I just look for whatever needed to be translated in that scene through the character of her wants, her needs, her desires, her fear, her drive. Is that translating or not? It doesn't matter what anybody looks like.
And you are a career actor, but this is your first full-length directorial project, correct? What did you learn about yourself as a director through this? All of the the COVID and the skeleton crew aside, what did you learn about yourself as a director?
I think actually just what we touched on, the confidence in your vision. Like I said, because I come from acting, I have mastered kind of like a good enough confidence that I can work very relaxed. As a director, I'm still newer, so that is what I'm building, or what I have built majorly with this feature. My first feature film here is the muscle of confidence in my vision, and really just listening to my intuition on it, because you have always people or voices around you that think they have better ideas or different ideas or want to try, and it doesn't mean that I'm not open. I'm always open to suggestions, and I want to try things out. I love trying things out, but sticking to that innate vision, that confidence, I think that is what I've been learning most on this feature. And also, I mean, if I can do this with no budget and wearing 10 different department hats, I think I'll be fine for my next one. If I have like an actual budget and an actual production, I'm super excited for that.
Yeah, I think so too.
It'll be much easier, especially now that we're out of COVID. There's so much that you don't have to think about next time around. It'll be much easier. Yeah, more of that. I noticed during the film there is a very dreamlike quality to the project. I'm wondering, clearly it was intentional, but what was your desire through this effect, and how did you work that into the writing of the screenplay?
Sure, I love that question. Can I counter that with a question back?
Yeah.
Very interested to know. So when you say there was a dreamlike feeling to it, mm-hmm. like in what senses were you picking up on that? What felt, in which way did the filmmaking feel dreamlike?
Yeah. Well, let me say it flowed very well, and the passage of time was seamless scene to scene. But it was also like a little disorienting as far as like, wait, how long has it been since then? And how long has it been since she's seen this character? There was a lot that I was trying to figure out, and even part of my brain was like, is this all in order? Are we jumping in time? I was trying to figure that out while we were watching it. And you weave heavy dialogue scenes with montage quite a bit. There's long extended musical segments where we kind of fall into this beautiful montage of the city and her traveling and things like that. So it just the way it flows made it feel dreamlike to me.
Yeah, I love that. Well, what I wanted to do is really have the audience go on this journey with Mina. So really experience it with her. And that is sometimes just kind of like long conversations. I mean, I had 7-page conversations. Some of the stuff is 7-page conversations. To then, scenes of scene to scene, back to back to back, of no dialogue at all, just kind of wandering around and sitting and, so I did that because I wanted the audience to really be able to be with Mina and also kind of get lost in in there is no time, there's no space, everything just kind of goes in and out. And again, to like the flow part of it, that was all in the preparation. Like I said, I went over every single shot multiple times into detail with my cinematographer Philip Greenbaum, and I'm very strong, and like when it comes to directing, I'm very strong, and like I have to know the ins and out of each scene. So I'm editing the movie, the whole movie, the entire movie in my head, like over and over and over and over. So I know exactly how I want the scene to end and where to cut to. And those transitions are really important to me. And that makes the film flow. And that brings it into this like harmony of just like, oh, you just seamlessly go into the next thing. Or I use the tool of hard cuts, specifically when all of a sudden, for example, when she does abuse substances, there is a hard cut because you wake up from what's happening. And so then I use the hard cuts. So it is very intentionally that way. But yeah, I did all of that in order to give the audience the experience of being there with her. And also, like I said, there is no time or space. It's just kind of, you just kind of go along. That's a little bit of that nomad life of, you go from day to day, and sometimes you don't even, oh, wow, it's already Friday. Is it Friday? I don't even know what day it is. It's that type of thing, And disorienting, that's also why I put so many locations in there, because you go literally in one day. We were sometimes shooting 6 locations. We were going from downtown to the mountains in Burbank, down to East Hollywood, then to West Hollywood, Beverly Hills. Like, it was just, you're all over town. There's not just in the beginning of the movie, you're here, and then you end up there. It's like you're all over the place all the time. So that also helps with the element of lost and confusion of like, where are we? What's going on?
Yeah. What it was for me, it started right at the beginning when she wakes up and we hear the seagulls. And like I said, to me, it was like, oh, she's dreaming of the beach or something. But it's actually, the seagulls are right outside of her box where she sleeps. And so that was the first thing that did it for me, of like, okay, what's going on here? This almost feels like a dream. And then the segmented bits of Mina's life that we go through that aren't even really like a montage, but just segmented bits of her day, sitting, walking down the street, playing with Burrito, all of that. And that's what did it for me. And
then, of course, I also have the elements of the flashbacks.
Yeah.
Of something before, because obviously she looks very different, and it had also the texture of the visuals, the camera is different. So it all adds to kind of like the illusionary, dreamy part, which can also be translated as confusion or lostness, which those are all the subtle elements I wanted to incorporate for the part of the mental illness.
Did you work on cutting the film while you were shooting it, or was that all afterwards? Were you tempted to cut while you were going?
We literally would have no time. It was just, I would have loved to. I did watch the dailies. The days were insane because, like I said, I was also craft service. I was up at 5 a.m., making peanut butter jelly sandwiches for everyone. We would come home at like whatever, 11 p.m. Then we had to transfer all the footage. Then I was watching the dailies at like 1 a.m. in the morning while I'm also prepping for the next day again, of all the props, all the costumes, all the dialogue, the character preparation. It was gnarly. I basically didn't sleep at all. But yeah, I did watch all the dailies to make sure that we because it was so wild and we had to go so many times. Oh, we were going to film here. Oh, shoot, we can't. So let's go. Let's walk over here and let's see if we can film over there. So it was just so much chaos that it was important to kind of have a look at least, do we have it? Just double checking. But also the editor who was doing all of the first part of the editing was also the sound guy and also Mickey. So it's like we're all wearing multiple hats. So it's like, there's no time for any of it.
Yes. And how many days was production?
You know what? I actually wanted to go back and look at that because we were filming originally, I think we had 15 days that were a little bit spread out. We had 15 days, but then we had to do some more other stuff again. So I think we ended up like doing 19 days, something like that.
Wow.
And
That's incredible.
I mean, it's wild.
Yeah.
And then we had, and a little later on, we got to the first rough cut. And I mean, my first rough cuts are like pretty good. They're not really standard rough cuts. So we got the first kind of rough cut done, and then we were showing it around to some people because again we were completely self-funded, we have no budget. So I was like, well, how are we going to do post? I don't know, let's figure it out, let's show it to some people and see if they think it's worth getting financing or whatever, something. And so at that point we showed it to some people, and we then had some big Hollywood veterans come on board to executive produce and help us finish the film, again without any money, just with everyone that came on board to help us finish the film and wanted to support the cause for no cash up front, and they will just take back end points of the film. So then at that point we were okay, let's elevate this. Now that we see all the footage, there's a little bit of a thing at the end, and so I actually went in and did a little bit of rewrites again, and I changed the ending of the film and added a couple more scenes. So then I think pretty much a year later, I went back and we filmed 2 more days. So I think adding those 2 days, I think we're at about 21 days total of filming.
That was a good time to get that in. I do remember that part of the pandemic where none of us had a lot going on. So that was the time for, hey, you got 2 or 3 weeks to work on a passion project with me. You got anything going on? Nope, you're free. Okay, cool. We'll make this work. And you have the world premiere coming up at the Dances with Films Festival. So I'm guessing this will be the first time you've seen it on a big screen, a huge screen, one of the most famous screens in the country, in fact. How are you feeling leading up?
I mean, it's just so exciting. Like you said, the Dances with Films Festival is at the Chinese theaters in Hollywood, which is one of the most legendary locations you could ever screen it. So it's just so cool and so exciting. And it also feels like it makes so much sense because this film is so LA based. We shot all over the streets in LA. Every angle of LA is in this film. So it just makes sense to world premiere, kind of like a home run, like home base LA at an LA festival. So it's very exciting. And I've also been behind the scenes while we were waiting to see which festival we're going to. I was building relationships with some nonprofits that work in that field of homelessness and mental health. And so we are also collaborating with the Downtown Women's Center in Los Angeles, which is the only nonprofit in LA that is specifically for women experiencing homelessness. Then we also work with the United Way LA. So they're all supporters and collaborators with us in the film, and they're all coming out to watch the film, and we're planning some screenings with them together. We're also doing a screening later on in the year with on the East Coast with I was consulting with a specialist in schizophrenia from Harvard University, and so she has her own Harvard-led clinic for schizophrenia in on the East Coast in Boston, and so they're big supporters of the film too. And so we're planning to do a screening educational wise and with that whole Boston hospital circle over there later in the year. It's very exciting, and it all makes, I think, a lot of sense. And we have a couple more festivals coming up in July. But yeah, the world premiere, of course, I mean, that's the first time we're going to see it on the big giant screen. And then, one of the biggest locations ever in Hollywood. I think it's just so exciting. I'm super, super grateful that it all, worked out that way.
Yeah, congratulations. That is so cool.
Yeah.
So cool. Yeah.
It's very, very exciting, and we'll have to keep in touch once it premieres. I would love to hear about how it's being received, the future festivals you're going to be showing at. If you're ever coming to Atlanta with it, let me know. I would love to see it. I would love to see it on the big screen as well.
Yes, absolutely, and we'll see once we're done with the festivals. We hope obviously to find distribution pretty fast and get it out to the masses so that everyone can watch it and see it. Even at home.
Yes, and I know you're kind of in this weird spot where you're done with the project, but you're not really done because now it's about getting it out into the festivals and promoting and all of that. Are you just focused on that, or are you already getting the gears moving on future projects as well?
Everybody that knows me said I do not sit still. Yes, I mean, I do have a lot going on right now because we're in press prep for the festival, which is really exciting. But I'm totally in preparation for my next film. So I have a feature film script that I have written and that I mentioned earlier that I thought was going to be my first feature, but then the pandemic hit. So this is actually the script that I would like to do next. And I have a producer friend of mine who produced a short film of mine before. She's very interested in doing it with me. We already have been shopping it around, slightly started to shop it around. So we have some slight interest from a production company. So yeah, I am actually at the point of doing some rewrites on that script because we got some notes from, like I said, someone that was interested in it. And so, yeah, I'm excited to get that one going and hopefully getting it going soon too. I don't stop. I never stop learning and growing.
I mean, that leads me into one of the direct questions that I have is I was reading another article and you mentioned the Albert Einstein quote, when you stop learning, you start dying. Tell us a little bit about that quote and why it's so important to you and how you've used that in your life. Again, sorry, I said that kind of fast. When you stop learning, you start dying. Albert Einstein, take it away.
Yeah, I am a person that is very growth oriented. I always want to learn more, see more, understand more, expand more. I think that's why we're here on this earth in this lifetime, to just, keep growing. I don't do very well with stagnation. I think there's just too much for us to explore. And I also love exploring, and it's adventurous. And I grew up in many different countries surrounded by different cultures and different ethnicities and different religions. And I find it all so interesting and fascinating because you can learn so much from each other and from different opinions and aspects and wants and needs and desires. And so that to me is it's just innate. It's just part of me breathing, is the desire to grow and understand more of myself and of others and of this life and of meaning and purpose and all of that. So I also, that just goes in all aspects of my life. It goes into the craft too, of course. I think I've never learned everything. There's always more. I mean, I'm so inspired by my colleagues at the Actor Studio because, these people are legends. They have won Tonys and Oscars and whatnot, and they still at 82 years old show up every week and go up on stage and exercise and practice and make mistakes and fall on their feet and then try again. It's so inspiring to me. And I think that's what keeps you going in life. And that's also what keeps you young at heart, is to always be curious of more things to explore and grow into and kind of like grow back to yourself,
Yeah. And are you primarily interested in directing moving forward? And if so, do you still want to be playing these large roles within your projects, or would you rather just focus on the directing? It seems like you're plenty competent in doing both of them, but moving forward, what would you like to do?
I'm completely open with that. I like I said, I didn't write this movie in the sense of like I am writing a good part for me to play. It was kind of the necessity of like, it's the pandemic and the less people we can have. This next script, which is called South of Dakota, that I would like to do as my next feature, that I would just direct. I wouldn't act in that one because it's just a different story that it wouldn't be right. And also I would like to, for that project, just focus on the directing, which I have done with another short film too, where I just directed and I wasn't in it. And yeah, it's just a totally different way of working. So I'm very open to all of it, but yeah, for my specific next script that I have written, I would only be writer, director, producer on it.
Okay, well, I'm excited for what comes next for you. So always, please keep us in the loop. And we're talking a lot about inspiration. Let's talk a little bit about, we like to wrap up the podcast of asking the question of, if you could go back in time, if you could give advice to a younger version of yourself, what advice, what nugget of wisdom would you pass along?
I think the advice that I would give a younger version of myself or any young filmmaker, and maybe this is a little bit also geared towards female filmmakers, is to just really believe in your vision and believe in your competence, in your voice. A, that your voice matters and that you have something to say, and B, that there is an audience out there that wants to hear it. It might not be everybody, but there is people that want to hear your voice. And that is, it's a fine line, because it doesn't mean you can just be cocky and be like, oh, I'm going to be confident. No, I mean, you have to have the backbone of it. You have to have the practice and the research and the preparation. So do your diligence and do your work and prepare and really be truthful to yourself. But when it comes to really that voice within you that comes from such a deep place, that is not just some fantastical idea that comes from the intellect, but something that comes from deep within your soul, from something that you can't even maybe really understand where it comes from, it just comes through you. That voice, just be confident in that and just listen to it, and don't let anybody tell you any different, because that is something that only you know. Nobody else can know that voice. And that's what you're here for, to give that voice expression. And as a filmmaker, you choose that through filmmaking. It's magic.
That's beautiful. So I would guess that you would say you're all on board for sketching with a 9H pencil.
Yes, all nice. The soft. That was very good.
He watched the movie. Can you tell?
The audience is like, huh? What are you talking about? Oh, now then you know what he's talking about.
Speaking of that, I did have a question. When you go to your college professor's home and she sets up her boys' pull-out couch for you, there's a lamp in the corner, and in that lamp there's a baseball glove with a ball in it. Now, was that just there, or did you was that planned? Is that a set piece, or was it just there?
So that was also part of my house. Like, my house is literally like 5 locations in the movie.
Gotcha.
So that was the guest room in my house. And so that baseball glove is just, it's part of, it was my ex-boyfriend's, I think, childhood baseball glove, or his baseball glove. And so I just placed certain things in the room, because I was also art department, that would just give it a little bit of character for like the college professor's son. And so that just happened to be an item that I thought was, just gave a little bit of uniqueness to it, a little specificity, but
it totally did. Like, it wasn't it wasn't distracting or anything, but it was like, mwah, there it is. Yeah, little. Yeah,
it's clear. This is flavor. For some.
Yeah. Oh, that was great. It was. I never would have thought that was all the same location when you were utilizing your apartment like that. So you again get credit for yourself as the art department for all your hard work there. Well, thank you so much for being here today to chat with us about My Home Unknown. Where can folks go to find out a little bit more about your film?
So where you can find My Home Unknown is on Instagram at My Home Unknown. And then we also have a landing page at wallybirdproductions.com/My Home Unknown. And Wally Burt's Productions is one of our production companies. It's Diane Foster's production company, and she's the producer on the film. So we have a landing page there, or on Instagram at My Home Unknown.
Yeah, Instagram would be a great place for everybody to go give a follow, because you are entering the festival circuit. So there's going to be new announcements of where it's showing. And if you're in Southern California, this week, June 28th, Dances with Films Festival. Please go check it out. It's a wonderful film. You did an amazing job with it. And thank you again so much for taking your time to be here with us today to discuss it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, guys. It was such a pleasure and an honor. I really, really appreciate you guys taking the time watching the film and talking about it and caring about it. And I feel very honored to be on your podcast.
Well, it was an honor having you here. And just again, promise us you'll be back once you're done with South of Dakota.
Yes.
Come on back and talk about that. I would love to hear all about that. I'm already intrigued by the name.
Yeah.
Very, very different piece.
All right. Well, you have a wonderful day. Everybody, please go check out the film. And thank you again.
Thank you.